Hi, welcome to MBA Pod TV. I'm your host, Pete Reho. It's a growing trend among top business schools to now accept the GRE in addition to the GMAT. Schools such as Harvard, MIT, and my alma mater, NYU Stern, are just a few of them. Now you may be asking yourself, some of the schools I want to apply to accept the GRE, so which test should I take? Or you may have heard that the GRE is a bit easier than the GMAT, so should you just take the GRE instead? We're going to answer those questions in today's show. Joining us is Chris Ryan, Director of Product and Instructor Development at Manhattan GMAT. Dan Gonzales is Managing Director of Manhattan GRE. They'll take you through the key differences between the two tests and talk about the upcoming changes to the GRE. You'll also hear from admissions directors from NYU Stern and MIT Sloan.
Business schools are accepting the GRE now because it widens their applicant pool. It allows them to attract applicants who have only taken the GRE maybe because they want to apply to a PhD program or something like that. It allows them to be more exclusive at the end of the day. If there's a bigger applicant pool and the school hasn't grown, then their acceptance rates and their admissions rates go down, which is good from the point of view of rankings.
We're really looking for indicators of academic excellence and performance, and we find that the GRE is a reasonable indicator of that. And the GRE reaches some people that otherwise maybe wouldn't be able to take the GMAT. And some people who maybe have taken the test earlier, a lot of people take the GRE when they're kind of finishing up undergraduate, and it's a couple years later and now they're ready to pursue business. So it's just a nice option for people.
Definitely under 5% of the applicants submit the GRE either exclusively or in conjunction with the GMAT. Not because they take both and submit the scores here, but they may have taken the GRE when they were applying to grad schools.
So let's assume I'm a student who wants to get my MBA and I want to decide which exam to take, the GMAT or the GRE. The first step is I'm going to develop a list of schools that I'm interested in, maybe 5 schools. Second step, I'm going to call the admissions department from each of these schools, and I'm going to talk with someone, and I'm going to ask them, do you accept the GRE? Is this an option for me? Most likely these days the answer is going to be yes. I'm going to ask them if there's an advantage to taking one over the other. Most likely they will say no. Third step, I'm going to take a practice test, one GRE, one GMAT. For the GMAT, I'm going to go to mba.com and I'm going to download their GMAT prep software and take a practice test. For the GRE, I'm going to go to ets.org. I'm going to download their Power Prep software and I'm going to take a practice test. And I'm going to try to familiarize myself with the content on both exams and see how I score on these practice tests. This will give me a sense for where to go from there.
When I was applying to business school, I opted to take the GMAT because I didn't know that I could take the GRE. Now, while there are a number of overlapping components between the two tests, they are still quite different. Let's find out what some of those differences are.
In terms of content, the GRE verbal is much more focused on vocabulary and vocabulary recall, whereas the GMAT is more focused on grammar, logic, and reasoning skills. On the math side, the GRE is more focused on kind of quick number sense. Given 2 numbers, can you compare their values quickly and manipulate them such that you can compare their values quickly? Whereas on the GMAT side, it's more about the word problem, the classic word problem, having a step-by-step approach for solving these problems. So based on your skill set and your strengths and your background in math, this is going to be a pretty big decision for you in terms of which test you want to take. Each exam plays to a different set of skills.
At Stern we take both. Some schools do not. So it kind of depends on what they plan in terms of their application strategy. If they are applying to a range of business schools, they should look and see what tests are acceptable for those schools. And I would tell them focus on the test that's going to serve you best in your application process. So, if they're only interested in applying to Stern and the GRE is something that they're interested in pursuing, great. If they're interested in applying to a range of schools and some of those schools only take the GMAT, they might be better served just to focus on one test and do the GMAT. The GMAT still is a standard. It has great history behind it in terms of its predictive capability, in terms of how people will do academically. But the GRE is something now we also look at. It's great for dual degree people as well, people who are pursuing public policy, as well as an MBA. So it does allow people pursuing those dual degrees to be able to take one test and kind of serve both purposes, which is nice for them as well.
Now suppose you're someone who's a little bit weaker on the quant side. Perhaps you're coming from a non-traditional background, such as a nonprofit, the military, or in my case, having come from the arts. Should you opt for the GRE instead of the GMAT because the math is supposed to be easier? Let's find out.
If you don't have much of a quant background, you need to demonstrate that to the schools. The question is, which way can you demonstrate it better? A high score on the quant on either side will demonstrate that, so you should really be driven by how you feel about each test on its content side. If you compare the tests though, the GRE math side is a little bit easier. So if you're thinking of equivalent scores, you might need to score a little bit higher on the GRE math than on the GMAT math subscore. But is there a lineup? Do we have that mapped out? I don't think any school does. So really you should be driven by what you find to be better for you, which is why we say go take a practice test.
Once you get like a 790 on the quant section of the of the GRE, I mean, we're not going to kill ourselves comparing what is that in relation to a raw score on the quant section of the GMAT. 790 is a good score.
So if I need to figure out what I need to score on the GRE to be competitive at a top MBA program, how do I go about figuring that out? At the moment, there isn't any kind of hard and fast data out there that we can grab onto and use. So the best thing to do is to call the admissions department, get someone on the phone, ask them, what's an equivalent score on the GRE? What's going to give me a shot at admission here?
For those of you taking the test in August 2011, you should know that the format is going to change and there's going to be some new content added. Let's find out what those changes are and how you can prepare.
First of all, on the verbal side, it's going to de-emphasize vocabulary out of context and emphasize vocabulary in context. So antonyms and analogies are being dropped. There are more sentence completion, text completion kinds of activities, as well as reading comp again. On the math side, the math content we've been told is going to stay essentially the same, but since there's going to be an on-screen calculator that you can call up, that's going to cause some kind of difference in the difficulty of questions. In terms of the test taking itself, not only are there going to be new question formats in which you pick multiple right answers, you actually have to type in a number for your answer in certain questions, but you're also going to have what's called a section adaptive structure to this test. So instead of each question being a solo game for you, that you take this question, you can't go back to the previous questions, the next question is determined by how you do on this one, as it is on the GRE right now and on the GMAT. The new GRE is going to have one big section at the front of 20 questions that's not adaptive. You can bounce around within those 20 questions. Then on the basis of how you do on that section, you'll get another section which will be chosen in an adaptive way, but its content will be fixed once you're assigned that section. So you'll be able to bounce around within those 20 questions. ETS is calling this a new test taker friendly format, which remains to be seen whether it's really going to be that test taker friendly, but it is a pretty significant difference. Finally, the scoring is going to be different. It's going to go from 130 to 170 because of the substantive differences throughout the rest of the test.
Starting in March of 2011, students will be able to register for the new exam. My recommendation would be, if you know you need to take the GRE and you want to take the GRE for MBA purposes, it would be best to take it before the new changeover. Right now it's a known quantity, we know what it is, there's lots of data on it, and so best to get it out of the way while it's still a known quantity. Once the new change happens, there's going to be a bunch of score calibration, a bunch of uncertainty, and a bunch of waiting to see actually what the results of the exam indicates. Furthermore, those candidates for MBA programs trying to get in for the first round, taking the new GRE will put you out of the game. Scores won't come out until November of 2011, and that's too late for first round admission. So if you're wanting to take the GRE for first round, take it before August, before the August change.
And that's it for this episode of MBA Pod TV. I'm your host, Pete Reho. Visit us at mbapodcaster.com to register for weekly audio and video shows, and join us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up to date with the latest news and insights regarding your MBA application process.